Welcome. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at HTML forms. This is one of the most widely used parts of HTML. We use it to solicit input from the user. And without a doubt, you probably filled out a form online before. Here, we're going to take a look at some of the basics. As you can see here, I've listed a number of tags. The form tag, the input tag, which without a doubt is the most widely used tag within forms, and then three other UI components that we can use to select or to request information from the user. To get a complete list of all the tags in forms, you can see here I've specified a list, and within the input tag, which as I mentioned the most widely used, you can see here all of the types of input that we could have. I've highlighted date here. You could also have input for passwords and many others. Some of the most widely used are predefined. So let's go ahead and get started and write a few examples with forms. We're going to go ahead and go back to our editor, and we're going to start out by defining a form tag. Let's go ahead and do that, and let's close our tag. Inside of it, we will use the tag that I mentioned is the most widely used tag. In the type, as I also mentioned, there's a lot of them, but in this case we will use text. And the name we will give that tag is first name. We'll then close the tag, and we want to repeat it. We want to have first name and last name. In this example, I'm going to go ahead and change here last name. And I also want an input button or a submit button. So I'm going to go ahead and type input again. Now the type will be different in this case. The type will be submit. And the value, the text that I want to show within that button will be save. Could also do submit, but let's go ahead and use save. I'm going to go ahead and save this text, and now I am going to load it onto my browser. And as you can see here, I have two fields where I could write first name and last name, and also we could also submit it. We will come back to this submission and receiving the information server side later on. But for now, we simply want to show it. Of course, you'd probably want to have some text that said, please submit name before it. And if we did that, we could have something like the following. Okay, so what follows now is a number of examples that I've predefined, and I'm not going to type them all out as it will take a long time. Instead of that, I will copy and paste each of them onto my editor. So you can see here, the next one I've selected is radio buttons. These radio buttons provide you a list of choices of which you can only select one. As you can see here, I've predefined a choice of gender, and you can see here that there's two types of input, each corresponding to each radio button. The first one would set male, the second one would set female. So if we save that and reload the page, and these are simply line returns, this BR. And if we reload the page, you can see here that we have male and female. I'm going to go ahead and show you one more. And this is a choice of browser. And in this case, let's go ahead and match the style we have above. We're creating an input tag again, but in this case we're putting into the input tag a list, and this list is defined below. You can see here data list, and the ID is browsers, which we then use within the list. This selects all of these options to be available from the input tag. So let's go ahead and save this, reload the page, and as you can see here, it's just a blank field. If we select the pull down, the down arrow, we will see all the choices. Also, if we start a type, let's say we started with F, it would filter for the matches that start with F. So you can see here how we could select Firefox, say. Okay, and let's look at one last example. Actually, I have two, so let me go ahead and show you one for selections, and this would be for a drop-down type selection. In this case, you can see here I have a select tag, and I also have below it three options. I have morning, afternoon, and evening. Let's go ahead and load that into the browser, and note that the options are within a select tag. Here's where it opens on line 26. Here's where it closes on line 30. Let's go ahead and save, reload the page, and you can see here that we have that drop down where we can select morning, afternoon, or evening. And finally, the last thing I'll show you is the text area. This is something you frequently see when you make comments or you provide some description in some form you're completing online. And you can see here how you would define it. The name of the tag is text area, and it has a few other options, a few other attributes. You can specify the number of rows and columns to size the area upon which people will write text. And you can see here that I've put in some initial text for display. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. You can see here that this text matches the text that we have over here. I can also delete it, and I can add my own. Something like hello. So that's the basics of forms. They allow you to submit information, and I've shown you mostly the input tag and also some of the other types of mechanisms that you have to be able to take user input. So with that, let me go ahead and close, but first let me remind you to make sure you practice these tags that I've shown you, that make sure that the understanding that you think you have, you can actually demonstrate in practice. So with that, I'll go ahead and close and say goodbye.